And we are back here for part 2 with Slim, James Miles, but he goes as Slim. And now we're going to discover the next chapter for Slim and his wife, Alena. And that's part 2, Bold Botanica. So after your years of study and work with different organizations, first your startup, and then you found yourself wanting to expand your horizons, then you both moved on to starting Bold Botanica and working with Apotheca Grotto Holdings. So you're the co-founder, vice president of innovation and science. Alena does everything, right?
Yes, she's a Jill of all trades for sure.
Yeah. And so the both of you took over 50 years combined experience and in the herbal and natural products industry and set out to create premium herbal products that you both believe in. And I know that they're fantastic because I use them. So you're offering potent and therapeutic products made from clean, sustainably sourced ingredients, and I'm going to run down just the different categories that they fall in. You've got 9 products for immune health, 2 for daily nutrition, 4 Spagyric. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
4 Spagyric liquid extracts, 1 for digestion, 4 for brain and stress support, and then 1 for women's health. That's a lot, and it's growing. So what drove you and Alena to create Bold Botanica?
Well, I think largely it was the situation that happened with a company that we were working for at the time, where there was some drama around the departure of the owner, and it got litigious and ugly, and we were obviously on the side of the individual who founded Gaia Herbs and whatnot. So we we were looking for a new path to try and deliver incredibly high quality and clean products that were innovatively formulated. So we were prepared to just kind of go out and do it on our own. And we were contacted by somebody who used to work for Gaia a long time ago, a 40-year plus veteran in the natural products industry. He introduced himself on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, you should talk to my CEO," and so on and so forth. And so the CEO of Grotto Holdings, that owns Apotheca, which does contract manufacturing, and then now, including Bold Botanica, five other dietary supplement labels. We started talking, and he wanted to hire us, and we're like, "Well, we think we want to do our own thing." And he said, "Well, let's do a joint venture if you feel that strongly about it." So it was an amazing meeting of a confluence of different backgrounds that were very complementary. So we started off, and as soon as we moved down to Georgia, we were here for 3 weeks, and it was shelter in place. So that's why so many of our products have an orientation towards immune health, just because a global pandemic will reorient the way that you think about things.
Sure. So that's probably why you decided on the 2. So the first wave, you decided on 2 products. I believe it was the Elderberry Plus and the Reishi Mushroom, right? Those are the first 2 that you launched with.
The first one was actually Elderberry Elixir, and then Reishi and Elderberry Plus came out shortly afterwards.
Right, and
Elderberry.
Right, and so you decided to focus on those because everybody was concerned with their immune systems, I gather.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what was the process of you picking the next items that you brought into?
I think it was still along those same lines of thinking. Our liquid D3 K2A, vitamin D3 has become very popular and notable in the media, even in the last 10 to 15 years. And there are there's a significant chunk of the population that is actually D3 deficient. For those who don't have a lot of melanin in their skin, they can go outside during certain times of year in North America, not in the wintertime if you're of Florida and very, very southern California.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have melanin, you can go out and self-generate, and your skin will produce D3 from cholesterol that's in your body.
Right.
And it's a very integral part of the immune system, and it's incredibly important. And a lot of people don't get it dietarily in the winter months. So if they were to discover vitamin D3, and I put quotations around vitamin, they would not call it a vitamin. It's a prohormone. And so things that was discovered early on during the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic was that where the SARS-CoV-2 virus docks, there's a specific receptor site. And vitamin D3 actually, if you have enough in your system, it actually downregulates that receptor site. So meaning that if you get exposed to it, and if you get it, which oftentimes is unavoidable, it's going to present symptomatically significantly less severe in most people.
Cool.
So that was another consideration for us as well. Also, epidemiologically, if you look at the populations in North America and kind of microcultures in different areas, they got hit hardest. Individuals of color were unfortunately in New York City, also especially in New Orleans, and then on Native American reservations. Those were the folks that percentage of a number of infections and severity of infections and mortality rates, they got hit the hardest hands down.
Okay. Wow. I hadn't thought of that.
And again, individuals of color not being able to self-generate and then not getting it dietarily, and then there's socioeconomic applications to, health and immunity as well that I think played into that. So we wanted to, come out with a really high quality D3 product.
And it tastes great. It tastes really good.
That's the other thing too. Yes, doing when you're doing liquids, I mean, with the exception of herbal extracts, that oftentimes you don't necessarily want to mask them. You want them to be bitter. You want the body to perceive that the specific energetics or the combination of the individual herbs energetically expressed through a formula. You want the body to receive that in a very specific way. However, when it comes to something like D3, the taste is not really an issue until it comes to compliance. If you create a product that doesn't taste good, people are going to be less likely to consume it and take it on a regular basis. So to that particular product, we added a small amount of organic monk fruit extract to give it a little bit of a sweet taste, the MCT oil base, as well as organic orange and lime essential oil. So, thank you for saying that. We're excited about it and think it tastes pretty good.
I also love the omega 369, which is also, it's vegetable based, right? The omega 369.
Yeah, it's naturally derived from gromwell, which is an herb that got used hundreds of years ago, but it doesn't really have a significant place of standing in the herbal arcana in European herbal medicine or North American. And so years ago, some folks that we're friends with that we used to work with at Gaia started testing the oil that was produced from the ahi flower seed or the gromwell seed. And what they found was that it was the richest natural source of stearidonic acid, which is a specific type of omega-3 that the body converts into EPA and then DHA and converts exceptionally well. It's very potent and concentrated in gamma-linolenic acid or GLA, which you won't find that in flaxseed oil or fish oil. It's used a lot for perimenopausal and menopausal issues and for female balancing purposes. but typically ladies have to use evening primrose oil, borage oil, or black currant oil to get a significant amount of GLA. So it's very different from flax in that it has GLA. Flax oil does not, fish oil does not. But then also it has a small amount of omega-9s in a balanced way. And one of the things that we do with this um, that we're really excited about in terms of the stability is we've added approximately 15% MCT oil, which is a very stable saturated fat that's cleaved off from coconut oil that adds a whole other group of fatty acids that you don't find in other omega-3 containing essential fatty acids. And then same essential oils, put in a little bit of orange, only to taste, very safe amounts, and a little bit of lime. And then because the monk fruit in our R&D trials, the monk fruit extract didn't suspend very well in this. So we ended up switching over to an organic stevia extract. A lot of people don't like stevia, it can give them a headache. We use an organic stevia extract where during the extraction process, the company adds a specific enzyme, which as the stevia leaf is extracting, this particular enzyme actually digests and consumes the bitter compounds that are in stevia. So there's a little bit of that, and that makes it taste very well. But with everything that's happening in the ocean, with fish and fish colonies, around certain areas being over harvested, this is a great alternative to fish oil, and it tastes much better than flax oil. We were just doing a training the other day for some reps, and one of our naturopathic doctors said, "Yeah, you know what? I tried using flaxseed oil as a complement to certain types of salad dressing. Tried to use it to make a salad dressing, and good quality flax oil has a very bitter, nutty taste to it, and so she just couldn't get herself to make herself eat it. Whereas if you use whole plant omega to add to vinegar and some spices, it makes an amazing salad dressing."
I've done it, so I agree. I totally agree. So this is wonderful. I'm glad that people are getting this education because it's great to know where you're getting your supplements from, where they're coming from. One thing that I hope that you delve into a little bit is one, what is the difference between adaptogenic and non-adaptogenic, and then an example for each of those, and also how it helps the body, especially for the adaptogenic herbs. How that's pretty, it's almost like Mother Nature is like, okay, I've got specifics for you, and then I've got cure-alls for you. I mean, that's the way I look at it when I look at herbs and flowers and things. So if you can just cover that, the adaptogenic, non-adaptogenic, and how adaptogenics work in the body.
Sure, absolutely. Good question. The majority of botanicals that are out there are not adaptogenic in nature. So the way that term got coined was back in the 1950s. Dr. Breckman and Lazarus in the former Soviet Union were studying the effects of Siberian ginseng, Eleutherococcus tentacosus, which now the standard common name for that, so that it's not confused with Panax ginseng. The standard common name is Eleuthero, but a lot of people still refer to it as Siberian ginseng. Well, along the way of going into some very deep studies, they started to realize, hey, this is not behaving like a typical herb or a typical drug, or doesn't exhibit and kind of create a specific pharmacological action in every single person. It's doing different things to different people. Examples of that were when they took an extract of Eleuthero, and they did a double-blinded study, and it was a large-scale study too. So what they did was one group got a placebo, the other group got the Eleuthero. Well, what they found over a period of time was that the group at this factory that were getting the Eleuthero, they had less sick time, higher performance, better performance reviews, and their general overall outlook on work and life had improved, and it was quantifiable. So they broke out and they decided they were going to do some other studies. And one of the things, they did a sister study, two sister studies at the same time. And one study they were using throw on elderly men who had high blood pressure. And of course, placebo and eleuthero. But what they found was that the group that was getting the eleuthero, it helped to lower their blood pressure. The sister study going on simultaneously was on elderly men who had low blood pressure, placebo and eleuthero. The group that was getting the eleuthero extract, it raised their blood pressure. And that was their big aha moment that, like, wait a second, this is doing different things to different people. And so they coined the term adaptogen. And the term, roughly, they wanted it to mean that roughly that it helps every individual adapt to their own personal level of homeostasis. It helps it helps everybody, in its own unique way, because and that's I think the one of the reasons why there's been an attraction to traditional Chinese medicine and classical Ayurveda for the past 25 years, 30 years in the West, is that both of those systems, as well as even homeopathy to a degree, they look at and they understand that not every human being is the same, and there are different biochemical personalities that get referred to as constitution that differentiate why some people can eat ginger and do well with it, and for other people it's too heating and too stimulating. And of course, there's why can some people eat peanuts, other people can't. I mean, there's a whole range of different kind of microbiological personality traits that don't carry over from every person to every person. So the concept with adaptogens is that it's going to help you and your biochemical personality achieve your own personal level of homeostasis. So that's kind of how the term adaptogen got coined and came around. Examples of adaptogens are obviously Siberian ginseng. Ginseng in the West is called Panax quinquefolius and is actually a little bit different than the botanical name of Asian ginseng, which is just Panax ginseng. They're very similar but not identical, and they have different energetics, especially according to the teachings of classical Chinese medicine. Another example is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is an incredible adaptogen from classical Ayurveda in India and has been used in India for thousands of years. And schizandra, rhodiola, holy basil is considered to be. And there's other ones too. And there's herbs that they're now categorizing as not a full-on adaptogen, but they have adaptogenic properties. Now, is echinacea an adaptogen? No, echinacea doesn't meet the criteria of being an adaptogen. And the criteria that they came up with was that, one, first and foremost, that the botanical to be considered an adaptogen has to be very safe without side effects and can be consumed for long periods of time. The second one is that it has to have specific effects on reducing stress in the body. And the third is that it has to have non-specific effects as well. And so what that means is that it has the ability to do things that we may not even have the ability to test and quantify. The modulation effect, it helps modulate our systems to deal with stress and deal with stressful situations much more efficiently. So literally it helps us adapt to unpleasant circumstances or physiological circumstances, biological circumstances in life.
Right. And so the mushrooms would also be the fruit, which are the mushrooms. Those would also, some of them would also be considered adaptogenic in nature. That true?
Yeah, that's a good point, because reishi mushroom, there's different camps and different outlooks always, as with everything. And there are some people who don't consider reishi mushroom to be an adaptogen, but then there's a whole bunch of other folks that do. Cordyceps is a mushroom that is definitely held in high regard as an adaptogen.
Okay. Yeah, because you've got the reishi, you've got lion's mane. Is that also considered an adaptogen? Adaptogenic?
I don't believe so. I hear some people maybe throw that out there sometimes, but I think of that herb as being or that mushroom as being more of a nootropic, meaning that it has an effect on cognitive function, brain health, and the functionality of cognition and recall, and
Hmm.
how our brain, how our, and overlapping that a little bit with how our mind works. So with regard to lion's mane, there's a couple of compounds that have been discovered that exist in lion's mane.
Hmm.
One specifically called arenosine that is believed to be responsible for this concept of NGF, or nerve growth factor. It used to be believed that neuropathy in the in the in the in the brain, in the
Hmm.
brain tissue, that once we lost those connections, that they were done for, and the brain couldn't create new ones, and that's been found to be not true. And lion's mane has the ability to increase the ability of the brain to create new neural pathways.
Right. There's so much to learn. So much to learn. So how do you go to the process of deciding what's gonna what's gonna make the cut and making product or not? Do you have a process for that?
Yeah, it pretty much starts out by an aspect of I think reflective ideation, looking at the market, looking at health needs, looking at where people are at. One example, one thing that has prompted us to come out with a plant-based melatonin product is so many people have a hard time sleeping, and sleep quality, and the amount of time somebody can remain asleep, things of that nature. So there's consumer demand
Hmm.
plays a role, plays a factor. A lot of our friends, a lot of our family will
Hmm.
say, "Hey, can you guys?" Or they'll look for other products that are out on the market, and say, "Hey, can you guys do this, but do it better?" So that's definitely something that those are, I think, the main factors. And then we go through an ideation process. A lot of times I get shut down because I love incredibly expensive, high quality ingredients. But organic saffron extract, that is saffron, and organic saffron extract that calls out three different compounds, that's grown and extracted in Spain, for instance, is like $6,000 a kg. And, that gets kind of cost prohibitive if you want to use a significant amount of that. So
Yeah.
Alena and some of the folks on our team will reel me in a little bit and say, "Hey, great formula, but we can't make this work price wise."
Yeah, I love saffron. Love it. Love it. I make tea with it. I'll just put some strands in to hot water and just drink it. It's yummy and it's good for
Nice.
you. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Amazing carotenoids in it that are good for cognitive health. They found that it's good for menopausal symptoms, also as a potential mood elevator.
yep.
So there's a lot that can be done with saffron. The problem is Crocus sativa, which is the Latin name for the saffron flower, which is a perennial. Um, the stigma is what gets used. The
Hmm.
stamen stigma is what is inside of the flower,
Hmm.
and you usually get like two, maybe three of those per flower head, and they weigh a fraction of an ounce. So
Yeah.
you have to be able to. It's a very labor intensive love to be able to work with saffron on a scaled up
I want to grow that
model.
crocus. I want to grow that crocus plant and just have my own stash.
You can do it.
Yeah.
It'll grow in certain parts of North America, and you can grow it in a pot and then bring it indoors and
Yeah.
overwinter it there if you're in the.
Yeah. And I saw, because I follow some guys that do gardening, actually, mass gardening also, like, for themselves, but they show how also the bulbs split, sometimes in a growing season. So you'll get more than one. And so you can have your own little field of these, which would be great. And it's great for the skin. It's great for the skin. I make a toner for the skin. All right, enough of that. So one of the other things that I'm fascinated with about your extract is that they are what they call spagyric extractions. Can you go into a little explanation of what that means, what that kind of extraction means, and how that lends to the efficacy of the product that you're putting out there in the market?
Absolutely. That's spagyric extracts. The term spagyria and the term spagyric were coined by Paracelsus hundreds and hundreds of years ago in Europe, and he was a doctor and a notable alchemist of the day. And when he was making his liquid extracts, one of the things that he kind of intuitively felt inside of himself was that when he was after he had filtered and separated out the physical plant material referred to as the MARC, once it's been pressed, he felt like there was some vitality, that there was something still left inside of it. So he developed a process where you take the spent herb after you've removed the extract and the essential oils, if that's the case, and put them to the side, and you take the mark and then you fire it, and you go through a calcination process where you turn it into a charcoal, and then you liberate the carbon so that it goes through what he believed was the metamorphosis of refinement and purification, so that when you're finished with something that is like this much, like say several pounds worth of mark, you end up with a tiny handful worth of what he called salts and what the alchemist called salts. So basically, when you're taking about, say, a pound or two of herb material that you've pressed out, and you have this much, a very, large, amount that you can hold in both of your hands, like this, say, for instance, once you've taken that and put it into a pot or a process of incineration on a fireplace, so forth, and by the time you heat it and what we call firing it, um, 2 to 3 times, you liberate the carbon, which is going to come off as smoke, and it goes from being like a black charcoal to an off-white or white handful of what Paracelsus called salt. So literally, this much spent herb you can refine down to in a small handful of these mineral salts that have been purified. And so the purification process, he believed, made the final product, the spagyric extract, significantly more potent because you're remineralizing it, and you're going out of your way through the process of purification. And the alchemists actually felt like that it was a spiritual practice. What they refer to as the real alchemists and not the charlatans. They wanted to make medicine and medicinal substances to help people. They were not concerned with turning base metals into gold, which they felt was crass, very terse, and below the system of alchemy. So, but they believed in the process of refinement of these minerals, that the minerals of the human body get refined and moved away and cooked away, and then what's left is the gold, or the soul, jiva, consciousness. And for them, it's a spiritual practice as well. But in today's world, you can't talk to or try to market to people in that way because they'll think you're crazy. But in terms of what you're putting in the marketplace, you have a very full spectrum extract that has been remineralized.
And that's great. Who wouldn't want that? Well, thank you for that explanation. I think anybody
Of
can
course.
understand what you're saying here, which is it's not always easy to take very kind of almost esoteric concepts and put them in terms that anyone can understand. So thank you for that. So now the sourcing.
Well,
Sorry, were you going to say something?
no, I was just saying you're welcome.
So sourcing, who and why you choose people and where they come from, the herbs and the botanicals, that's got to be the it's going to be quite the job. What does that look like for you in a day in the life of bringing something on board and all that? I mean, it's probably pretty arduous, but if you can give us a little peek into that world.
Absolutely. We take sourcing where we get our raw materials very seriously on a number of different levels. The environmental aspects, the qualitative aspects are some of the most important ones because ultimately at the end of the day, a saying that herbalists have used when crafting and making herbal products has been around for decades, that your finished product can only be as good as the raw material that you begin with. So if you start with something that's got high micro counts, if it's filled with yeast and mold, you've got funky bacteria in it, you're not going to make a good product. And also, you want to make sure that the vitality of the plant is intact because you're trying to extract that vitality and convey it and transfer it into a product that's fit for safe human consumption.
Right.
So where we source it is very important. We also make sure that we don't work with materials that get over harvested in the wild, for instance, like golden seal. A lot of golden seal golden seal is a rhizome that's very hard to cultivate. So people go out and harvest it in the wild. Wild crafters will do that. Well, there are individuals and companies that will go into an area outside of a forest in Tennessee, for instance, and go in and just completely wipe out a whole colony of golden seal. Whereas good good wild crafters will go in and they'll selectively harvest a very small amount of it and allow the main kind of mother or brunt of the colony to exist and continue to propagate, go back there in a couple of years. And so there's a respectful relationship that has to exist between the earth and that part of the earth that you're working with and the plant itself. So we actually, in our product in Bold Botanica right now, we don't use any golden seal at all. It's
Hmm.
been on, it's been on, at risk and to watch lists for a while. And years ago, it was just funny. One company went out and wildcrafted hundreds of pounds of golden seal rhizome and then planted it in fields and said, "Hey, look, it's cultivated golden seal." And it's like, is it really? I mean, come on, that's not really a great a great business practice in our minds. So another aspect is that we work with substances that have been created and procured all over the planet. So it's made locally, made domestically, but sourced globally
Right.
because things like kava kava, you can't grow kava kava in Georgia. You can't grow it in North America and in any way to speak of. You can grow it in Hawaii, in certain areas of Florida. You might be able to get away with it, but that's why Vanuatu and Fiji and those Micronesian and Polynesian islands are where it all comes from. So creating a relationship with the grower, the distributor, is very important. We have a process. It's a long 8-page document that our vendors have to fill out about
Mhm.
their good manufacturing practices, their good storage practices, temperature controlled environments, making sure that, there's a pest control system in place, yada, yada, all of these things.
Hmm.
And then when we receive raw material into our facility, it is tested for identity.
Hmm.
So we use an HPTLC typically, and you can use an HPLC also, but a high performance thin layer chromatograph is a piece of equipment that you make an extract of the raw material and you compare it on a slide that has stacks of different colors. And you compare it to what's known as a BRM or a botanical reference material. So we'll pay a lot of money for, just because we're talking about kava, say this little botanical reference material, just like 10, 15, 20 grams, that has been certified by botanists and an organization that say, hey, this is kava kava. We know it's kava kava. It's been botanically keyed out in the field. This is the identity. This is the species, so on and so forth. This is what it is. So when you make an extract of that and you get your chromatographic slide and you take that and you put it next to the material that you have, you can look at it and do a compare and contrast. If it has all of the same, markers and indicators, then yes, you can say, okay, great, this is kava kava. And the other thing you can do with HPTLC is those bands that exist in your column, there's varying degrees of brightness. So you can also look at this comparison, and you can also do it with extracts, not just the raw material, but you can look at it and say, oh, this is not very potent, or it doesn't have a lot of vitality. It's kind of swaggy, and we're going to reject it. So we evaluate it that way. If we need to, we'll test it for heavy metals. And then also we do a full microbiological count on it. So TAPC, which means total aerobic plate count. So microorganisms, bacteria that you don't want to have over a certain level. And then we test for yeast and mold. And we also test for salmonella and a couple of other real specific pathogens that can, mess you up a little bit if you get exposed to it. So it goes through a rigorous testing process before we even start the extraction process.
Right. Sounds awesome. And I'm glad that you covered the aspect of sustainability, of how these things are being grown and where they're being grown and how they're being harvested. It's crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's incredibly important to treat the earth and the plants in a mutual, respectful, loving way. Otherwise, it won't be there. We'll have a global Easter Island situation, and nobody wants that. It doesn't help anybody, and it just robs the earth of her vitality and steals the future away from today's children and young.
Yes. Yeah. Which brings me to this was something that you implemented from the onset, from the very beginning. You wanted to make sure that not only were you practicing sustainability in the way that you conduct business, but you also wanted to get your clients and your customers involved. And that is with the partnership that you created with the on environmental sustainability through reforestation and regenerative agriculture. Please tell us how this works and how us as customers are doing our part to be part of the solution and taking care of ourselves by using Bold Botanica products.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point. One of the things that we wanted to do was go beyond just giving our customers and the users of the products a high quality, mostly organic product line. We wanted to be able to give something back along the same lines of what we were just talking about with Mother Earth. And so there's an organization called One Tree Planted, and we formed a relationship with them where all of our products, all of our bottles, all of our cartons have their logo on the side. And the logo that we developed, or the kind of tagline for that aspect of the line was, you buy a bottle, we plant a tree. So for every product that we sell, we donate $1 to One Tree Planted, and they in turn plant a tree. Now, not just one at a time, but they have reforestation and planting initiatives all over the world on 5 different continents. And so they'll give you a feedback too of where your money has been spent and where those trees have gone. And we know that in Northern California, in certain areas of Eastern California where there's been fires, we've helped to replant trees there. In Indonesia, India, and also the Appalachian Mountains, Western North Carolina, and a few other areas. There's been initiatives that we've helped to sponsor, and it's we're not saying that like, hey, this alone is going to save the earth, but as of right now, we've planted over 40,000 trees, which can sequester a significant amount of CO2 from the atmosphere and pump out a very loving amount of oxygen for all of us to breathe and thrive on. So that's been a rewarding part of our existence. One Tree Planet, I think, is under new management, and so we are going to start transitioning to working with a couple of different companies at the same time, because I think it's too expensive to plant a tree for $1. And so what organizations that we're going to work with not only have tree planting initiatives, but also have forest protection and advocacy elements at work. So we're excited to not just plant trees, but to help protect some of the trees and forests and groves that need our loving oversight and awareness put on them so that they can survive and thrive.
Right. And you also, originally you were giving envelopes, you were sending out envelopes with every order with wild flower seeds that are perennial flowers. And now you have the hearts. You have the nice artistic heart paper with the hearts with the seeds inside the heart. So you can just plant the heart and you'll have wonderful perennial flowers coming up all the time. I'm going to have a nice field of wildflowers soon. I'm looking forward to
Nice.
it.
Nice.
So thank you for the flowers. So this is all success, and I love that Bold Botanic is growing at such a beautiful rate. And I know that you and Alena work really, really hard, and you get my continual feedback on what my experiences are with the products. What other feedback have you been getting, like success stories from Bold Botanica users and fans? What has your feedback been? I'm sure it's been positive, but I'd love to hear about specific stories if you have any. We all would.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We get a lot of information sent to us. There's a lot of reviews where people share their experiences on our website. Amazon has a number we've at this point, with all of the products that we sell on Amazon, we've gotten, I think, probably close to 1,000 total for all of our products reviews wise. I think probably one of the things that stands out the most that you can relate to is a good buddy of mine who I went to the California College of Ayurveda with. And my buddy Nick, and I know he wouldn't mind me telling the story, but he's a meditator and in the Yogananda tradition, the Kriya Yoga tradition. And typically every summer he will travel to India and he will go over and he'll study with some people. And there's a group that he's affiliated with and he spends at least a couple of weeks over there. And as you know, going to third world countries or countries where there is a third world element with regard to the quality and purity of water and food that you're going to be exposed to, you have to be very careful about what you put in your body. So, to quote Nick, he was spending time with some of his friends and doing some very respectful and loving and genuine temple hopping. They were going to certain temples in certain areas. And so, as is a custom, you go into the temple, you pay your respects, you might sit. There may be a priest that is responsible for this particular temple. They might do an incantation, they might do a puja, a prayer, things of this nature, depending upon, the nature of it, where it is, so on and so forth. So we had just come out. Actually, this initially first he started using it when he was going to India. Plant Sword was still prototypical and it hadn't been launched yet. But I would send him some of the prototype. He would take it with him and always get really good results. If he felt anything coming on by way of what some people hang the moniker of Delhi Belly or he never had any issues. Well, the last time, and this was actually after we had launched Plant Sword, very bitter, stimulates gastric function and a whole aspect of our immunity that has to do with the bitter taste. And he went into a temple, and the whole time he was there going through the process of paying his respects, there was a big table of prasad. And prasad means basically spiritually consecrated food that has been respectfully prayed over. That once you pay your respects, here's the sealing of the deal for you to
Right.
be able to get this. So Nick was watching the entire time, and it was an Indian sweet, a whole tray of them that were sitting out, and it was just covered in flies, and there was flies walking all over it, um, and interacting with this sweet, with this prasad. Part of him in his mind said, dude, don't eat that. The other part was like, this is a temple to this particular deity, and I'm going to be respectful no matter what, and it's there for me, so on and so forth. So he had been taking Plant Sword. So he was given the prasad, he ate it. So did two of his Indian traveling compadres. And so that night, his two Indian friends had, let's see, how did he qualify it? I think explosive diarrhea was the term that he used. And after he left the temple and respectfully consumed his prasad, he took several dropperfuls of plant sword, and then later on, before dinner, then after dinner, and he never got sick. And that's highly unusual because the Indian microbiome is acclimated to a lot of the things that a Western based, US based microbiome is going to be incredibly sensitive to.
Right.
And he absolutely attributed that to the consumption prophylactically and post consumption of prasad to plant sword. So for me, that's, I think, one of the best testimonies that we could give. And,
Yeah.
Any testimony to do with preventing harsh explosive diarrhea is just something that you want to talk about as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've used Plant Shield and Plant Sword, and I had not gotten sick for a couple of years, and this spring I got hit. But whatever was going around was leveling people for weeks, and I was only sick for about 8 days. I was taking both of them, knocked out a fever pretty quickly, whatever it was, and I had no gastrointestinal issues whatsoever. But there were other people that were definitely, like, their lungs, their gut, everything was, they were getting leveled, and I had a much milder experience. So, and I'm glad that your friend, he went unscathed. So, so to speak. Yeah. So I would imagine, I was going to ask you why you still do the work you do, but I think it's pretty clear that you have a great love for humanity and an exceptional, you and Alena have a great love for humanity and exceptional reverence for Mother Nature. And how do you keep yourself continually engaged and passionate? I know the two of you are working your tails off. What is it that keeps you engaged and passionate with this work? You know?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I mean, one, we love to innovate, we love to create, we love to bring something to the market that is completely unique and of an exceptional high quality. And the end result is, the selfish aspect is getting the stories, getting the feedback. You, Nick, other friends and family that, have said similar things, taking Plant Shield and Plant Sword, alternating them when they need it throughout the wintertime. People where they worked were getting sick and dropping like the flies that had eaten too much of the facade of that temple, and they were able to keep themselves buoyed up and doing well. And I think at the end of the day, when you look at everything that's happening on the planet, there's so much suffering, there's so much pain, there's so much division, there's so much anger, there's so much cruelty, and we can't all stop that. We can't change that. But what we can do is we can figure out how we want to do something different with our own life, and therefore, we feel like it's our dharma to serve others, to try and serve humanity and serve that connection that exists between every human heart by creating incredibly high quality products that are connected to a love and reverence for each other and for the earth.
Perfect. Yep, that's it. That sums it up beautifully. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, all the time that we've put into this, which has been great. I enjoy it. This is one of my favorite subjects, as botany and herbology. And I think I'm going to let everybody know that we are going to do some additional educational stuff together, and it'll be posted on VL Speaks in the future. I can't say exactly when in the future, but it's something that Slim and I are committed to. And I think that everyone will enjoy the educational aspect of it, which is more of what VL Speaks has to offer the public. Skillful Living an Artful Life shines a light on people doing their work so skillfully and artfully that we all want to know about it and share it, and also be able to partake. So thank you everyone for stopping in. Please make sure to leave your comments. Be mindful. If you have any questions, leave them there for us. If I don't answer it, I think Slim will. I'll ask him to answer it because he doesn't have enough to do because he's got plenty of time. But thank you for joining us here on Skillful Living and Artful Life. And I hope that you found this inspirational. And be sure to go to boldbotanica.com. You can find them on Instagram, Amazon. They've got their own website where you can see everything that's available and take advantage of it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Slim.
Thank you, ma'am.